Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Change Book International podcast. As you know, every Monday I bring you one of our amazing authors, and today is no exception. And I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with Katerina Cozias. How are you today?
Hi, everyone. Hi, how are you? I love Mondays, Nicole, because it's a new reset to the week. And most of us get to relax on the weekend. And so you come in energized, hoping the universe is going to work with you. So,
Yeah, and as we just experienced, it doesn't always go as planned, but I think sometimes they throw those little glitches in there for you to see how you keep moving forward, and keep your saneness about you and go about things. But I have to tell you, this has been one of the podcasts I've been really excited about because I read your bio and I'm like, I am so excited to talk to this lady. So can we start with you're a TV and radio host?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me on. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Katerina Cozias, as Nicole mentioned, and I'm known in the ethers as America's media mindset mentor. I have worked in the space of media and communications for over 20 years, and I'm a professionally trained on-camera host and media personality. And in fact, before COVID, I hosted my own radio show with LA Talk Radio and Television called LA 40, Life After 40, making sure that for some of us, there was still some hope, as well as just getting to experience all the beautiful things that the entertainment world had to offer. So I have hosted from the Oscars red carpet. I managed to interview Sharon Stone and Elton John. Ooh. And Marianne Williamson, for some of you who may be a little more spiritual and in the know. And so that was a really lovely chapter. And what I did is I took that on-camera media experience, coupled it with the practical PR and investor relations background that I came from in corporate, and really have built various companies and various programs designed around having and helping people shine in the media, whether that's media training, whether that's language and communication, trainings, and also just classic PR. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell. Yeah, happy to be here. And of course, just adding this in, I am a change book author. I was part of book 15 back
15.
In early. I think that was published in 2017.
Wow. Well, tell us what your chapter was about.
Sure. Yeah. So my chapter was called Make Media Matter. And it was basically a synopsis around helping solo entrepreneurs, authors, artists, really understand the steps they need to take to shine and gain that visibility and that traction. And so we put together a little bit of a framework called Polish, Pitch, and Promote. You have to polish yourself in terms of your marketing, your packaging, your expression, your languaging. You have to then pitch yourself. How do you go about getting on TV, sending a press release, getting that media press kit put together? And then, of course, polishing it all. Polish, pitch, and then promote. How do you get yourself actually out and doing this? And one of the things that it ties back to is one of the newer companies that we have founded recently, which I think is showing here on my profile. It's a company called CPI Success Inc. And CPI is an acronym for Charisma, Persuasion, Influence. And the reason we developed this sort of division of our company to promote charisma, persuasion, influence was because what we noticed pitching and helping people get into the Wall Street Journal, the Robb Report, Channel 7 News in their local area is even though we managed to help them get those interviews, a lot of times people were ill prepared for how to communicate. And it's a really interesting fact, but 90%, Nicole, 90% of CEOs cannot effectively articulate what it is their company does.
Wow.
So if a CEO has a tough time articulating what his company does, how are you doing in really explaining and gaining that positive connection between your offerings, your programs, your platforms, your services, and the people you're pitching to. So we're really excited about this new division. And again, it's CPI Success Inc. And you can go to cpisuccess.com for more info, and we can chat a little bit through this.
That's wonderful. And have you worked with any of the CEOs to where you can teach them how to communicate? Do you do that as well? Not individuals, companies? Who do you work with?
Absolutely. So we work with the gamut. We have private packages for people that want to train one-on-one. So again, depending on your time flexibility, and I think time is the biggest resource most of us are lacking right now. You know, most of us can come up with the funding, but it's usually the time. But for those that have the time and want to work one-on-one, we have private sessions where we really cultivate your ability to step into that charisma, that personal magnetism, how to use body language, how to use voice tonality, how to use articulation. And I'll touch on that again in just a moment. But we do work one-on-one with CEOs, also with C-suite executives and management, but also with regular mom and pop shops. Because I'll tell you, Nicole, sometimes, you know, your local roofing company that employs 30 people that are out there door knocking, how much better would their bottom line be if they trained their staff, if they trained themselves to effectively be able to negotiate, persuade, and really learn the communication tactics that only 1% of America has access to right now. I'll give your viewers a little tidbit here. You know, most of us think communication is talking. You and I are talking, we're communicating, but really communication is so much more holistic. 5%, just 5% of what we communicate comes from our words. 30 to 35% comes from our voice, our tonality, our inflection, our articulation, our ability to really enunciate our words and gain that ear of the other person. How do you get through the noise, right? By pausing.
Ooh, the pause.
The power of the pause. And it makes
I like that.
You know, all of us are listening to podcasts and we're vacuuming and we're cooking dinner. And then all of a sudden the voice stops and you think, did I lose my connection? You know, is something going on? And so you re-engage the person, you know, after the blah, 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 blah. And so that leaves about 50 to 55% that comes from body language. You know, is your posture upright? Are your feet pointed in the right direction? Is your eyebrow raised? And if your eyebrow is raised, what is that signaling to the person on the other side of the table? Wouldn't you like to know?
That is so interesting. And I think that's a things that a lot of people don't even realize. Mm-hmm. And one of my pet peeves when I'm talking to someone are, do their eyes wander away from me?
Yeah. And that's a telltale sign of the fact that you're either losing engagement or gaining. And, you know, back in the day, we used to have a large attention span. You know, before the internet, before the cell phones, before scrolling on TikTok and Twitter. But now we have really, the average American has an 8-second attention span, 8. But within those 8 seconds, you have 2 seconds to make a positive first impression. So initially, within a half a second, people start to recognize, should I continue to pay attention to this person? Half a second is very quick.
Oh, it's already gone.
Yeah.
Right now, it's gone.
So, you know, what can you do to capture their attention, to get them engaged, and then again, to be able to influence and persuade them, use your charisma, persuasion, and influence skills to get them to do what you want, or to politely move them out of the way so they don't become a barrier towards you and what you want.
Oh, I love that. And do you ever work with pageant contestants?
You know, we haven't yet. We've done national seminars, weekend workshops. Again, we work one-on-one with people. We go into companies. We have not worked with pageant contestants, although that's a great market that I think I'll pursue after this call.
I think you should, because one of the things, I ran a pageant in Arizona for many, many years, that if they won, they would qualify to go to Miss Arizona, then Miss America.
Right.
And one of the hardest things for many of them was the interview.
Mhm.
And they just struggled and struggled and you know, and stuttering.
Right.
Oh, so often. And, you know, I am very aware of it now when I hear people talking, if they're using those, you like. So I look at you and think you would be the perfect person to get those people, grab them and teach them how to speak.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny because there's thank you for that. That's a great suggestion. We you know, we also have worked in the past with lawyers, attorneys, and litigators for that same reason. Just because you come out of law school doesn't mean you're necessarily a great speaker. You have a skill that you can cultivate once you get in front of that judge and jury. And the same thing goes for really anybody that's out there interviewing. So you and I are on this podcast right now. How many of you, put your hands up, you know, use podcasting, use radio shows, use the media to get your message across? How many of you know that you could probably be doing a better job at, you know, succinctly using that time? Exactly. And so we don't have a lot of time here. But what I do want to share with people is there's always a way to upgrade those skills. And I want to go to back to the piece of charisma for just a moment.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, because people think, oh, charisma is something you have to be born with. You know, how many of us know that charismatic friend that wears the red hat, you know, or has the tattoos, and they're flashy, right? It's that classic stereotypical charisma. What people don't recognize, though, is the charisma comes packaged in many different ways. And one of the most understated forms of charisma is actually a charismatic benevolence. And I'll give you an example. Somebody that really had that intrinsic to her was Princess Diana. Right?
My hero. Yeah.
I mean, this woman could not walk into a room, get out of a car, you know, take the stairs without every eye turning her direction. Was she loud? No. Was she flashy? No. But there was something intrinsic within her that captivated a room. So perhaps you're coming to the table with what a lot of people would consider a quieter energy. Doesn't mean that it's less impactful. And, you know, those are some of the things that we go through when we work with clients, is how do we take what you already have and simply magnify it, simply, you know, open it up. We have a funny little joke that I tell, but I'll tell it here because it makes sense. You know, so how many of you out there watching right now might be a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a guy and you're married or you have a girlfriend, or if you're a wife or a girlfriend, you'll appreciate this as well. So a lot of times you'll see couples and they'll get into a bit of a spat, and the man will say to the woman, you know, honey, are you mad? And she'll say, no. Are you listening to the word no, or are you listening to the tone? And we forget how impactful using this body of ours in the various different facets can be, because we've been so conditioned to hide behind a text message.
So true.
And the human capital behind wealth creation and abundance is really so built into us already. It's simply a matter of tapping it.
Now, once you train someone for all this, that is kind of the antithesis of what you're talking about, how does this become muscle memory? So we, and I'm including me in this, that can just be part of our life without really having to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one tip that we give everyone is always be prepared. Know your material. If you know your material, you are leaps and bounds ahead of someone else who thinks they're going to go in and wing it. And another tip that we give on the Make Media Matter side, but it's also a great tip for the CPI conversation, is getting down to what I call your specific sound bites. So people think sound bites are only for politicians or for actors when they're off, you know, on a press junket. But what happens is a lot of us go out and we'll do an interview, and we'll riff with the host. You're asking me questions, I'm answering it. You're asking, I'm answering. And then tomorrow I'll go do a different interview and I'll riff with that host. And in a week, I'll go do another interview. And so now I've had 3 media touch points, all sort of on the fly. If I went into those 3 distinct interviews with the same touch points that I was willing to reiterate over and over and over again, eventually the community would become very clear on who I am and what I'm about. And I'll give you a great example of how this can be impactful. Love him or hate him, okay? And I'm Canadian, so I refrain from commenting. But Donald Trump, back in 2016, okay, so this is, he and Hillary were vying for that first presidency.
Exactly.
He was campaigning for about 1.5 years. For 18 months leading up to that election, what did we hear from Donald Trump? We heard,
"Make America Great Again."
and back then it was get Hillary in her emails,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to build a wall, right? That's all we heard from him. Whereas with Hillary, again, love her or hate her, she tried to be everything to everyone. If somebody talked to her about immigration, she would answer immigration. If they talked to her about taxation, she would answer taxation. What most people would normally do. The problem was she played in such a gray zone that people were unclear as to what her stance was. His, again, whether you agreed or not, you knew he was going to build a wall. He was going to get Hillary in her emails. If somebody talked to him about the foreign exchange rate, he would bring it back to make America great again. And so my invitation to you listening is, what would your 3 sound bites be? That would be short, tight, punchy, retweetable, captivating, unique to you. Figure those out and start repeating them over and over and over. And that'll do 2 things. Number 1, you'll get very clear and competent communicating those points. It'll minimize those ums and ahs and likes. And number 2, it will bring off a sense of confidence. And, you know, confident people get further in life. They just do. That is a fact. But the beautiful thing is confidence can be learned. And sometimes you just need to invest a little bit of time with someone who does this for real. You know, if this is making sense to you, you know, please let me know. I hope it is. And we just want you to have more. We want you to be more. We want you to be able to tap into more. Because at the end of the day, being able to reflect your genius in a way that, let's be honest, complements your bottom line. At the end of the day, we have families to feed. We have a future, a retirement to think about. I'd love to say money doesn't matter, but it does. It does, in the sense of securing those resources. And when you're out of survival, what happens? Nicole, you'll know this for sure, right? Your creativity goes up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're struggling to pay the rent, we're not being as creative as we could. So let's build that foundation for you and your family, for you and your business, for you and your dream. And then the rest of it flows from there.
Oh, that's such powerful advice. And one of the things I heard you say, and I want you said, "I'm known as."
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that, because a lot of people find that arrogant.
Okay.
And a lot of people just don't understand why we would say it that way. Can you explain?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, going back to confidence, I took a look about 10 years ago at my work history, which again was in the media and communication space. And I took a look at moving into what I wanted to do a little bit more of, which was on-camera work. You know, that's when I moved to Los Angeles. I became a professionally trained on-camera personality. And I wanted to start to move into the public speaking arena a little more heavily. Well, what is going to differentiate you, and how can you really give yourself a description that is going to make other people perk up? And I had one of my clients who said, "Well, you know what you are? You're a media mindset mentor." And I said, "Well, what the heck does that mean?" And she said, "You're not just teaching the statistical, static ways to get on camera. You're teaching the mindset behind it." For example, Brad Pitt. You know, if anyone knows the story of Brad Pitt, when Brad Pitt first moved to Hollywood, he was out on Sunset Boulevard as in a chicken suit, working for, you know, Chick-fil-A or one of these chains back then. You know, does Brad Pitt have any more charisma or confidence than you do. No. He just decided one day it was time to turn his on. And so is it time to turn yours on? Can you walk into a room and channel that same confidence and charisma as your favorite movie star? Absolutely. And again, you don't have to be loud like, he who we just named. You can be in your own space of what does confidence and charisma mean to you. And, number one, at the end of the day, Nicole, you'll probably know this. For a long time, everyone assumed that love was the highest vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Love, joy, bliss. And it turns out that they're finding that the readings on, some of these tests that they're doing is actually showing that authenticity has an even greater impactful vibration than love. And we are molded by society to do anything but be authentic, really. And I think it's just becoming harder and harder in this age, again, of social media and this digitalized world. I worry about these kids that are 15, 16, 20, 7, 10. We had a tough time, and all we were competing against was, the cover of Vogue that month. We're competing against this thing in our hand for 3 hours a day. So I think that the more we can foster an environment of authenticity and remind people that whatever makes you you is what makes you brilliant, that's where the mindset piece comes in.
I love that.
I like to refer to myself as America's media mindset mentor because we do more than just teach you how to be on camera. We teach you how to project a magnetism that reflects in all facets of your life.
Oh my goodness. And that's the first time I've heard this, that authenticity actually is higher than love.
Go Google it. Yeah. It's a new thing that's just come out. I read about it about 3 weeks ago and I thought, gosh, that's just bang on.
Oh.
That's something we've been doing without the scientific backing.
And it's so powerful because when you're authentic, you're who you came here to be. Mm-hmm. You are who you're supposed to be. And I would think that would foster self-love.
I mean, you would think so. And I think, that comes with maturity. It comes with time. It comes with experience. And again, how can you use subtle hints and subtle cues to help you connect with other people? I'll give you a little tip of something that we do in our CPI training. And this is, my business partner, Jim, does this, but he'll talk about creating that connection with someone. And of course, creating a connection allows for trust. It allows for people to relax, the walls that they might have up. And he says, it's easy enough to be a kind person. And for me to say, gee, Nicole, I love your blouse. And you'll say, oh, thanks. I have just complimented an inanimate object. And other than saying, sure, I bought it at Nordstrom, thank you, there's not much more you can say there. But if I say, gee, Nicole, I think you have just amazing style. Ooh, great blouse you're wearing.
Boom.
Boom, right? You watch that person light up like a Christmas tree.
Whoa.
I think it was Maya Angelou that said, people are not going to remember what you've done, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
I believe that. I truly believe that. And as I have gone through the years,
yes,
I've come to a point where I want for people to feel good. I want to make them feel good. And it's not hard. It can be so simple. Holding a door open for someone makes them feel good, that you've noticed them. Yeah. And I always tell my daughters, and since they were babies, kindness is free. Just be nice. Just, if you think they look lovely today, tell them.
Yes. Yeah. And tell them in a way that makes them really shine. And I think that's something that we can do that is inexpensive. And again, you never know what kind of day someone is having. And just that extra smile, just that extra compliment, just that extra, as you said, attention given towards them that lets them know I see you. Is really, really important.
Oh, I so agree, especially like you talk about this day and age of the phone and scrolling. That's so impersonal. And I like people. I want to interact with people,
Right.
and I want people to feel good. And I'm glad I unconditioned myself from everything that was conditioned into me.
Mhm, mhm.
I feel really good about that. And I know we're coming to the end, but tell people, I've got all of your links in here so they can get a hold of you. But in looking at themselves, when they look in the mirror, what can they see in themselves that would lead them to you to
Hmm.
help you perfect their already perfection of just being human?
Sure, absolutely. So, I love working with people because I love humans, and I'm a little concerned about this, digitalized AI age that we're starting to move into more and more. And how many of you have been on the phone? You're calling your bank, and you just want a human voice.
Please.
And you go through the 754, speaking to the phone, and then the system hangs up on you anyway. I mean, it's the most
It's awful.
thing. So, what we like to do is we like to just work with people, remind them that, they have a genius, whether they're an author, whether they are a builder. Sometimes we work with dental hygienists, and you could say to yourself, well, what genius does a dental hygienist have? It's a job. For some people, it's a passion. And it's a frontline communication to person position. So, how much better off would both the clients and the dental hygienist herself or himself be if they were competent in really parlaying tactics and patterns and word positioning that makes the other person feel good?
Oh, absolutely.
Really what we're about. I would like to invite everyone on the call here, and I don't know when this is going to air, Nicole, but on May 31st of 2025, I will be speaking at an event in Phoenix, Arizona. For those of you on the Change Book series, you'll know of Jim Lutz and Jim Britt, the founders of the Change Book series. But Jim Lutz is having one of his iconic deep dive seminars, and that's going to be happening in, as I mentioned, in Phoenix, Arizona on May 31st. And I will be speaking for one of the speaking slots on charisma, persuasion, influence.
Wow.
So if you're interested in coming and meeting us live, and you're interested in getting a little bit more on-hand feedback on how you can leverage these skills to really accelerate your business, to really absolutely full time and catapult past the competition, please come and join us. And again, if you're interested at all in learning more about this, whether it's making media matter for your business or, charisma, persuasion, influence, and how you can use that to accentuate who you are and what you do. Again, the links, as Nicole mentioned, will be here, but the easiest way to do it is go to cpisuccess.com. And from there, you can jump on the contact form and send us an email.
Oh, thank you for that information. So many people can benefit, not just from you, but from Jim's event, because
Yeah.
Jim is powerful.
Yeah.
He brings in amazing people and he puts on a show. He is the showman.
Great events.
Yeah. So I love that. And I want to thank you so much, first of all, for being patient with our little glitch this morning. I so appreciate that.
We've been dealing with IT tech issues for this morning.
We're going to look back and laugh about it someday.
Right.
Yeah, but I have learned so much from you, just in 30 minutes. So for someone to work with you, it has to be just a spectacular outcome.
Well, Nicole, was there ever a better time to increase your communication skills, and when now would that time be?
Exactly. And what better of a person to do it with you? You're kind, you're funny.
Yeah.
But thank you for being here today. And I am telling you right now, I have so enjoyed this. I've so enjoyed you. And thank you so much for being here today.
And it was lovely to meet you in person, Nicole. I've heard a lot about you, and to the Change Book community. So glad that we're all here together. Let's keep working together. Let's keep shining. Let's leverage each other and our skill sets because we have a great community here.
Beautiful. And I will see everyone next Monday on the Change Book International podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.